all creativity comes from combining two things that already exist.
Direction is more important than speed.
The secret to life, as I said, is to give what you have been given.
Welcome you to today's Life by Design session, an inspiring hour where we grow not just as professionals, but as whole individuals. At IT by Design, we believe that growth goes beyond just learning new skills. It's about shaping the right mindset, discovering a deeper purpose, and building meaningful connections that last. Today's session is titled The Secret to Life, and I can promise it's going to be a powerful one. Together, we'll explore how to define success your way, give what you've been given, and make small intentional actions that create lasting impact. Simple shifts for a more purposeful life. But before we dive in, just a quick things to keep in mind. Please stay on mute unless you're speaking. This keeps the audio clear for everyone. We'd love to see your smiling faces, so feel free to turn cameras on. Use the chat box for insights, reactions, and questions or reflections throughout the session. This session is being recorded so you can revisit it later if needed. And most importantly, be present, be open, and take whatever resonates with you today.
I have met so many times, Chad, and it's always a pleasure. And one thing that I can set the context here, team, that like direction is more important than speed. In the same way, the context that he's going to bring for this meaningful life is just going to change it once for all, forever. So today is the day. So be present, like amazing Anna said, be present, listen to every single word. Don't get distracted by anything. So over to you, Chad.
But before that, Chad, I would want everybody to know who Chad is and, a little bit about you so that we, are aware. So now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our wonderful speaker for today to all of you. Chad Jenkins is the founder of Speed Spark Collab Partners and the creator of the ICVCR growth method, a powerful framework that helps businesses unlock growth by identifying, clarifying, and leveraging their vision, capability, and reach. With over 50 ventures launched and recognition in the INC 5000, Chad has a proven track record of turning collaboration into strategic advantage using his ISO framework: identity, structure, optimize. Through Collab, he empowers entrepreneurs with the tools and partnerships needed to scale effectively. Learn more about Chad through our session today. And now, Chad, the floor is all yours. And before that, can we all please give a warm welcome to him?
This is very nice. You guys are way too kind. But thank you, Miss Anna. It's a pleasure being with you guys today. And I'm looking very forward to getting into it. I'll give 2 seconds of just a little background. Thank you, Anna, for doing that. I grew up on a farm. I think Sunny also, very similarly, grew up on a farm. And it's funny, Anchor, we were just speaking about being in New York. So at 8 years old, I remember distinctly, just like I can see you guys, I can see myself on that farm. And I thought, how am I ever going to get out of here? And I have nothing. And that was completely wrong. And in a split second, I remember everything changed. And I began to see the world as it exists. And it unlocked that every resource on the planet was actually at my fingertips with what we're going to learn today. So I really appreciate that, Miss Anna, for talking about some of the past, though yet I feel kind of old. A long time ago, I used to be the youngest guy in the room by 20 or 30 years. And now I'm starting to be the guy who looks like everybody else. So it's been a long road, but a lot of different experiences and just a ton of learning. So I have a complete consideration for what you guys are doing. And I commend Miss Cam and also Mr. Sunny for Life by Design, because it's truly so much more about what we're doing with what we've been given. In example, just this life that we have and these experiences that we run across, and how do we take those and make an impact? So certainly we're all doing jobs and we're creating value in a particular way. I'm here today to share with you the unique way that you do create value and how much more you can unlock all the benefits of life by figuring out and uncovering the secret. So with that, if we would like to just dive right in, I've titled this, What's the Secret to Life? And with this particular presentation, and most specifically this awareness, and you'll notice at the very beginning, it says awareness, unlock, and then activate. So if you'll click to the next slide, Today, what we're going to really focus on are those three components. So the awareness, what is the secret to life anyway? And how do we uncover it? And then how do we take action on it? So the unlock, there's three primary components that every human that's on this earth right now and has ever been on this earth and will ever be on this earth, there's three primary components that they have themselves. They don't have to go somewhere to get it. You don't have to go get a particular education, or you don't have to graduate from something or have all this years of experience. You came factory installed with it. And then once we uncover those three components, now what? What do we do with it? And so many of the things that we get impressed upon and impressed with in life, they're really great ideas, but no one tells me how to activate it. Like, what do you do with it? So it's very important to me, and I'm a big take action guy, that once we uncover the secret to life and we understand the components, now let's go do something with it. So at the end, we'll understand how to activate it. But we can proceed to the next slide if you'd like. So I'm reminded of one particular quote that I never forget. And as of growing up on that farm, it was very high humidity, and I was putting up vents and digging post holes all the time and riding tractors. I didn't feel very creative. But I ran across this quote a long, long time ago, and I assume most of us know Steve Jobs. Quite a few of us probably have an iPhone or every device that's made, like some of us on this call, not pointing any fingers. But this particular quote, again, I'm reminded all the time that all creativity comes from combining two things that already exist. That was a huge unlock for me, and it also was very empowering for me. So what I took from this particular quote is I don't have to go create something new. I just have to find two things that are not yet connected. And there's one critical word there: combine them. There's so much power in combining what already exists. And I would agree with Steve that all creativity comes from combining two existing things. If you think a little bit about Steve, specifically iMusic, currently we know of, and way a long time ago, of course, you had the iPod. And if you think about it, Napster had already figured out this sharing music thing. Record companies had already figured out the distribution of music. There were record stores everywhere. But there was a friction that Steve picked up on, and he looked at exactly everything that existed, just like me on that farm. And he said, what would happen if I enabled people not to have to buy the entire album? And what if we just sold it for 99 cents and we took that money and we gave it directly to the artist? People thought he was absolutely crazy. Walkman, which a lot of people had at that time, made by Sony, that was, of course, already delivering music to everyone in their headphones. Steve completely changed the world. Now, what did he do that was new? Nothing more than combining two things that already existed. And you could look at the other Apple products and you could see a very common pattern. And it was, and would be described as, extremely creative. But when you really peel back the onion, he's just combining two things that already existed. Being driven by friction or ways to create new value out of things that are frustrating to people. But you can see the results. Pretty impressive. So if you will, please connect to the next slide. So I have a question for everyone. We'll run a quick poll. How creative do you feel? And ultimately, do you think that you're creative? So we'll take just a couple seconds and you'll see the poll pop up here. If you will, just select it. And then at the end, we're going to share some results. Miss Anna, I think you have control on sharing the results. Is that correct?
Drishti has it. She'll share it once we're done.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thinking of all those companies that I've been very fortunate to create, I'll share with you guys. When you start as early as I did in creating organizations, there was no concept of working in an industry for 10 years or having a bunch of education and figuring out a better mousetrap. That was not my journey. My journey was simply evaluating what exists already, figuring out where there was frustration in a particular industry, and then connecting two things that already existed to create new and unique value. Awesome. Have we wrapped up on the poll? Look at there, 74%. That's amazing. And the 26%, we're hoping today will unlock the actual nature and know and awareness that you are all very, very creative. So if we'd like, let's click to the next slide. And thank you for sharing those results. And also thank you for participating. Oh, next slide. There you go. So let's get into this secret. Oftentimes, especially for entrepreneurs, which is, and thank you for mentioning that earlier, that's a lot of who I deal with all over the planet. Almost in every country you can imagine, we have collab partners now that are subscribing to this methodology that you already have what you need, just combine it. So this secret that I uncovered a long, long time ago as a kid, because I was very, very active, I was definitely noted that I would take action. And there's a particular profile that a lot of times we're given if you are in similar nature, but it's not really what it's all about. I figured out that over time, what it's all about is that you can only give what you've been given. If you think about it, whenever we come into this planet as a baby, you don't have anything. And if somebody didn't also give what they've been given to us, we don't last very, very long. But if you really unpack all the things along our life, even this what brought you to where you are today, first, they gave us life. Really appreciate that. The second that we're here, somebody starts caring for us. And then early in our lives, we began to gather education, which is exactly someone else giving what they have been giving, in our ability to communicate with each other, feelings, how to interact with each other, and then also how to take action and how to create value. As well, opportunities come our way. Opportunities are an awareness that someone else has, and they give it to us. So as I continue to dig deeper and deeper to understand this, it wasn't so much about what I was able to go and do, as much as it was about what I was able to go and give. And the recognition that everything that was said about me earlier was because a lot of people contributed what they had been given to me. Now, sometimes that contribution was a complaint. I'm sure a couple of us on the call get a few of those, potentially even every day. That is still an open door opportunity for us to be able to create value in our own individual, unique way, and also our own individual, unique teamwork way. But if you really unpack it, those are things that people are giving to us. So if you turn that around to yourself, this whole secret to life is to know that the only thing that you can do in life is give what you've been given. That every step of your journey has been built upon someone else contributing to you and then combining with what makes you unique. And that has produced something new, and I would argue creative for all of us. But if you will, proceed to the next slide. So when I talked about being a kid and somewhat being admired, I spent time, I mentioned it earlier, I've always been the guy in the room who probably should not have been in the room. I was 20 to 30 years younger than most of the folks I was around. Even as a kid, I grew up primarily around adults, spending a lot of time with my father and being naturally curious. It's funny, today I'll do most of the speaking, but if I'm left to my own devices, I don't talk. I like to absorb, but I also like to take action. So, and I noticed as a very early age as well, that society really favored those who would be classified as go-getters. And I was very active. As a kid, my dad would do side projects. He worked for an organization, but we were always doing something on the side, whether it's building decks or perchance doing construction on a house that had been burned, or doing other commercial type construction projects. So as a kid, I was literally, as the word says, the go-getter. I countlessly remember being told, Chad, go get this, Chad, go get that. Before too long, I figured out that people found it favorable when I would just show up with it and didn't have to be asked. And I thought being a go-getter was the big deal. And certainly it opened a lot of doors for me. But when I really started peeling back, there was more to the story. So if we will, let's ease on to the next slide. So when I really started thinking about this, the go-getter, which I was getting lots of positive feedback, and again, opportunities were coming my way, and I thought being a go-getter was really what it was all about. but I was really being driven even at that time by what's in it for me. And as I uncovered it, there's a whole lot more to the story. And it definitely compounds or complements this whole notion that the only thing in life I can do is give what I've been given, because it's actually happened to me. And so when I really started to embrace that, to, as you see here on the screen, to be focused on giving what I already have to others and mainly focus on what's in it for them, that be a guiding focus of, and also a guiding principle in mine, that it was much better to be a go-giver, that true success comes from giving what you've been given. We spend our entire lives striving to go get. I want to go do this because it's going to create an outcome. I need to go and do this because if I do and spend a lot of time and work really hard, it's going to produce something and I can finally get there. I'm here to tell you today, you're already there. You already have what you need. I know it sounds very simple, and we're going to get into some components to validate you already have what you need. But the process of the program that we're constantly running that produces all of the success is showing up authentically as you. Just be you. When you show up to give what you've been given, you make a positive impact to everyone around you, everyone on this call, everyone on a call, and everyone in your community. It's the default wiring that you have that produces all the value that I would argue is our responsibility and the reason that we're here in the first place. Whenever we're young, we're told that we're unique, that there's not another little Johnny. You're the only one. You were made special. The only thing that I know now, looking backwards, they didn't tell us how to activate it. And I've also figured that out. Here's the foundation of it. When I show up to be me in every instance, I'm combining what I have with what someone else has. And I have another thing that's called, and I created this specifically to make it really easy to understand. It's called the creation code. We talked a lot about creativity just a few minutes ago. When I show up to combine what I have with what somebody else has, then it always creates new and oftentimes high value outcomes. That tends to open up a countless amount of doors and opportunity. So going back to piling all this together, I focus a lot on where success comes from and how I am helped to and hope to empower others to be able to create their own success. I'm now beginning to see they already have what they need. And there's one little thing that's the difference between those that really succeed and those that do not. And it's the difference between, and you saw it earlier, am I a go-giver or am I a go-getter? Am I more focused on what's in it for me? Or is my guiding principle, and I know because I know some of the folks who are represented today on the call, which is a pleasure to see you again, you guys are go-givers, just as a default. So if we will, let's proceed to the next slide. Knowing that being a go-getter, as I shared with you, I was definitely favored as a child because I would just go show up with things. I would go and take care of things. If there was something that my mother needed, I would go do it. But oftentimes it was because I was going to do it because I knew I'd get an outcome, maybe some chocolate. And so here I have a question for you guys. Not that there is a wrong answer. I feel like there's an evolution of understanding. But do you feel like, looking backwards, was it better to be a go-getter or possibly a go-giver? And I appreciate your answers. I appreciate the responses, guys. It is a somewhat of a novel concept here, this go-giver positioning. When I mentioned as a kid, boy, it felt really good. Oh, Chad's a really go-getter. So it took, and don't feel bad, it took me about almost 40 something years to figure this out. So let's get into exactly what we have. If we will, let's proceed to the next slide there. So why does this work? Oftentimes, whenever you show up just to give, it seems like it takes a long time for that to actually produce an outcome. You may get a little bit of favorable outcome initially, but sometimes it can really feel like we're getting taken advantage of. And I would argue in the past, there's been many times that I felt that way too. But I would share with you, keep showing up. That by having this as your default operating system, to truly just show up and give what you've been given, which is the only thing that you can do. I would argue if you can't give it away, you never really had it in the first place. But what you'll find over time, and again, this is more of a marathon than it is a sprint, that all of that giving, it really compounds over time. And I can tell you, operating this particular way, when it did start returning to me, the benefits just kept coming. And as you can see here, the entire world seems that it will give back 100 times. And I will share with you as well, sometimes it's not a straight line. You'll do something for someone, you'll show up just as your authentic self, you'll combine your efforts, maybe some ideas that you have, or potentially some trust relationships that you have, and then nothing will come of it. But then, out of the blue, something big happens. And if you begin to really introspect exactly what, or inspect, I'm sorry, exactly where did that come from, you can find pieces and parts of that that are stemming back from potentially somebody that you made an impact on. They told someone else, and someone else had an opportunity that just overheard it. It could be just in a conversation. Those people seek you out. So I talked about this 100x. There's no doubt. And I promise I do not want to sound like a pompous, because that's the last thing I ever want to be. But I've been very, very fortunate to start a lot of companies. What I figured out over time, it wasn't about the companies I was starting. It was about the ability that I had figured out of ways to create value, to be drawn to friction, those complaints that I talked about a little bit earlier, just being hyper aware, things that are not my job. Well, when you start as many companies as I have, there was a lot of things in the past that were not my job, but I had to take a chance and began to give and began to show up to create value for someone else, even though it had nothing to do with the current company or the type of company that I owned. But I would go outside of my job, perceptive of what the convention would be. And because I figured out a friction and started creating value for someone else, a lot of those companies came from doing that exact thing, getting outside of the normal conventional box, creating value for someone else, and then recognizing a pattern. There was a lot more people that were afflicted by this friction, and because there were a lot more people complaining. And if I were to perchance create this as a company, it would probably grow pretty quickly. Turns out that was a true statement. This 100x, I'm a living example of that. I don't have a ton of education. And when you start that young, don't have a lot of experience. But I did have a formula. And that formula was an unlimited ability to create value for others and just to show up with exactly what I had to give and nothing more. But the outcome was quite favorable. So let's dive on to the next slide and unpack this a little bit deeper. Thank you. So I start my day and I actually roll through all of my days thinking, what can I give? As I talked about, we don't have anything other than exactly what we have to give. I can't go get something off the shelf and give it to somebody else. I got to pay for it. Well, that's a different type of transaction. Here, I'm talking about transformational type items. So, one thing that you can do to just really springboard you into this type of thinking is look back at your calendar. If I were to look at calendar, anyone's on the call, there's likely going to be quite a few events on that calendar that are categorized, at least the way that I categorize mine, by what I call the rake method, RAKE. As you see, it says rake your calendar at the top left of this particular slide. Well, each letter of rake stands for something. The very first letter is relationship. When I look back at my calendar, I ask myself, did I create any new relationships last week? Maybe I traveled. Maybe we had a new team member join. Maybe we had a new big client that we're onboarding. But when I look backwards, I said, what relationships did I create? The second one, awareness. Because of all that activity, when I look across that calendar, sometimes I think I really need a raise. There's a lot of appointments. But when I look at that and I inspect just a little bit further, I'm looking for things that I became aware of. Now, a lot of times you're able to do this not in the spur of the moment until you get really good at running this formula. But if you're looking backwards and you're looking at the calendar, which I find to be a huge unlock, you can run across things that you became aware of. The next thing, knowledge. I assume most everyone who's represented on the call are identical to the ones that I already know. You guys are absolutely lifelong learners. Again, the reason that we're here is just absorb and to really intake all of these things. I understand now that the brain, we humans, receive about 2.2 million inputs a day. I would say our brain is very, very efficient at the delete button. As it turns out, we only really take notice of 130 to 131,000 inputs a day. So, like I said, your brain's very, very good at the delete button. But when I think about those 131,000 inputs times looking at the calendar, it could be up to 7 days, depending on the amount of appointments that you carry during a week. That's a lot. So there's no doubt there's a ton of knowledge that we're gaining every day. There's a ton of awarenesses that we're coming across or stumbling upon. And also, there's quite a few of relationships that we're building. The last thing there is experience. The E in rate will stand exactly for that, experiences. Maybe you just got back from some travel. Maybe you just got back from a trip. Maybe you've done something or taking a big, you've stepped outside of your comfort zone. You may be trying a new sport. You may be trying a new dance move, but you're having experiences. A lot of times during those experiences, you're picking up some relationships, you're becoming aware of things, and you might even gather some knowledge. So the big difference that I find with very, very high performing team members, people, humans, businesses, even entrepreneurs, is the difference in one big thing. They're showing up to do exactly this, giving what they have to give, but they're doing that in a very unique way, but also a very simple way. And that very simple way is the power of one word: combine. When we look back at our calendar and we began to really scour and maybe even inventory the relationships, awareness, knowledge, and experience that's just kind of happening to us. Today, you woke up. I remember earlier we were talking about Friday, and I think you said that you're a solid 7 out of 10. Thank you for sharing that earlier as well on the call. As long as you're breathing, every day that you're given, you're going to collect one of these 4 things. And some days, a lot of days, 4 of the 4. The catalyst is when you combine them. And I'll give you a little bit of ideas around how you can combine them. You combine them with who you know. So a relationship, maybe I want to share this new person with someone that I already know. You may combine it with where you know. Maybe this works in India. It might work actually just the same in the Philippines or potentially in the US. So the where you know also applies. And then lastly, what you know. The things that you know based upon your experiences, the things that you know based upon your education. Maybe there's programs or softwares that you're really, really good at. Maybe you even have hacks to use those softwares. But if you're combining those awarenesses that you run across, even that knowledge that you have gained, combining it with what you already know, or maybe this experience, combining it with who you already know, every time you do this, you're going to create value. When I really looked backwards and tried to understand why was I classified as a go-getter originally, it was because everything I was doing was creating value. I believe that's why we're given these capabilities, both to learn, to move, and also to engage, and to just have an awareness that it's the ability to combine it with someone else always and endlessly creates value. So when I was categorized as a go-getter, it was because I was going to do things that created value. But when I really graduated, I would say, from my own internal college, and I figured out, hey, the secret sauce is actually to show up to give what I've been given. It's a lot bigger deal than just to go get something for someone. Again, I mentioned the construction projects. I would just go pick up boards and bring them. I didn't have a lot of skill set back then. But as I began to age and I began to gather more and more skills, if I focused on what I had to be given to someone else and became a go-giver, it unlocked all the value in the world, both that I could create and also receive. Again, not a straight line sometimes, but it compounds over time. So that's this consistent and constant question is, what can I give to each and every situation? Again, it might be something that I know, somewhere I know, or somebody that I know. But hopefully this is coming into focus of just how powerful and how empowered we actually are. So let's get into 3 specific things that will give us some very finite items that we can carry forward. And with that, if we could proceed to the next slide. Thank you. So I mentioned earlier today that we already have what we need. These are the 3 components that I've really unpacked that are the building blocks of all of this creativity. and we show up with it. This ideas that we receive. I assume most of us this morning woke up, and then as we traveled to wherever we are currently, we had some ideas along the way. It's the way humans work. So those ideas over time, and an idea that is combined with internal and external inputs begins to create a vision. Those visions, and you see here, of ideas of how things could be better. So the vision that everybody has, a lot of times, certainly in the entrepreneur community, we are categorized as a visionary. Oh, he's a true visionary. He can see things that others cannot see. Well, guess what? Everybody can. That's your individualism. That's the way that you're wired and created, that you as well have vision. You can see things that others can't see. Why? Because you have different experiences. You're a different person. As our parents told us a long, long time ago, we are all created uniquely. Thank goodness. Next, you have capabilities. These are the skills and knowledge that you've built of just being you. Whether it was the way that you played sports a long time ago, perchance this is the way that you learned how to study early on in life. These are the things that you've done that are truly unique to you, that when you share them with others, it creates a lot of value. But these are capabilities that we all have. There's not a one person that has it, one person that doesn't. The answer is yes, they both have it. What do they have? Their own individual and unique way of doing things. But yes, we do have capabilities. And then the last one, it's our personal relationships. These are trusted relationships that you build over time. It's the people and the networks that you already connect with. And perhaps you showed up with those first two items. You've either given some ideas that you have in ways that could be better. Maybe it's another team in the organization, or perchance it's another client who just onboarded. But you're sharing your vision assets, or you're perchance sharing your capabilities. I talked about earlier the way that you may learn to study. Well, if we're learning something new at our team level, and you're the one who figured out the best way to learn it, when you show up to share that with others, you're creating value. You're truly being a go-giver. So that reach and the people that already trust you, or the networks that you have or cast a shadow into, are an amazing asset that you have. When we talk about reach, and I have a new book that's coming, I won't go too far in reach, but this reach component does feel like most folks don't really know that they have the reach that they have. They don't really recognize it. And I say most people, this is a lot of business owners that have an immense amount of reach, but they don't understand the power that that creates for them and the value it creates when you show up to be a go-giver. So there's trusted relationships. I'll give you the 4 types, a little sneak peek into what's coming out in this book. The 4 types of reach are, the first one is eyeballs. You may send a bunch of emails. You may respond to a ton of tickets. You may also just send out a newsletter or write on a blog. You have access to people's eyeballs. Beyond that type of reach, you have access to someone's mind. When you send something, they read it. Perhaps you say something and it's read, you're impacting, and you have impact to shaping what's going into a lion's share of people who trust you's mind. Lastly, action. The next type of reach is heart. When you say something, people do something. You have enough influence over that group that whenever you, because you've shown up so oftentimes being your authentic self and coming from a standpoint of being a go-giver, always focused on driving value for others, you have created an immense amount of trust relationships. And when you say something, they take it to heart. Lastly, DNA. DNA level reach is whenever you're part of someone else's ability to create value for others. If you don't show up, the value's not created. Those folks who you have DNA level reach with, who you are a vital part of them being able to create value for who they're serving, is incredible reach. So we all have it. That little sneak peek into the 4 types of reach, I hope that that inspires you to understand some of the components and some of the valuable assets that not just one person on the call has, we all have. And they're all unique to us individually. Taking this vision, your capabilities, and your reach, and showing up on a daily basis, running that question, what can I give? What are the unique experiences I have, relationships that I may have, knowledge that I might have also recently gathered, or experiences that I can use to create value for others. I can truly be creative endless times of day just by showing up being you. So let's proceed to the next slide. So oftentimes, and I use this is there's a commercial in the US, What's in Your Wallet? I believe it's by Capital One, if I'm not mistaken, credit card company. And they're, of course, projecting what's in your wallet because they want their credit card to be in your wallet. When you really think about it, I said these are the things that we all possess. So it's vision, capability, and reach. It's already in your wallet. These are the most vital assets that you have to create value in the world. It's the way you're uniquely designed. And the unlock is to show up and begin to give it. So here, the vision, as we talked about, is exactly what you see. The capabilities, what you can do. And lastly, reach. It's those trusted relationships that you have that others don't. And if you show up, as you can see, there's a little formula just under the title of the slide. So after a lot of inspection, and a very good friend of mine, Dean Jackson, he coined this formula, and you can see the formula there. It's vision plus capability multiplies times reach. It's an idea that you have, and you share it with someone who's in a different team, and then you share it with someone else who has those trusted relationships. So this idea that you may have this morning on the way to work, which I feel like happens most mornings, this formula is a way that you can take action. The main thing to take away from this is you don't do it yourself. As we learned earlier and at the very beginning, we've never done anything ourselves. It's always been a collaboration. Whenever you combine what it is that you have, and it might be a request that you have or a need that you have, and you combine it with someone else's capability, it creates value. Now, if that is applicable to a lot of people, and you had another collaboration who had all those trusted relationships, then this ability to create value multiplied times those trusted relationships changes the game, sometimes changes the world. So this little formula, if you want to understand how success happens in the world, and we'll get into that just a little bit in another slide or two, this formula gives you the power to understand and to filter how all success in the world has happened. Someone had an idea. Maybe they had an idea for this microphone, potentially the internet, or this 80-inch TV, or the camera that's broadcasting my image to you guys. It all started as an idea in someone's imagination. Why not yours? Oh, they didn't share us the formula in school. This is the formula here to unlock all the capabilities and all the opportunity you have to make those ideas become a vision and ultimately become a reality. Vision plus someone else's capabilities and then multiplied times reach. I'll give you a quick and easy way for reach. We think about running ads on these social platforms. If it's a Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, those are nothing more than reach platforms and reach capabilities. You do have to pay them, so it's not so much in collaboration where you're going to split the outcome of the impact, but they are an example of reach. All you've done is taken your idea and perchance the capability. Let's say they had an idea of making a new t-shirt with some really awesome slogans. I don't do t-shirts. I don't have manufacturing. Somebody else does, but they are waiting for my idea, my vision to show up to their capability. And if we combine that capability with my vision, we create the t-shirt. Now we need to get it out to the world. Perchance we could just use Facebook or Instagram and run some ads. And then those things can turn into very sizable companies. So let's unpack a couple of those. If we shall proceed to the next slide. Thank you. So this one's an interesting one to unpack. Whenever I assume some of us know the Jenners, it's interesting the journey that they've been on, but this is a very interesting one. So this outcome is $1 billion brand, and it's absolutely combining and utilizing the VCR formula. As you look here, this Kylie Jenner did not even have the idea to come up with the cosmetics. She had a friend that had the idea. Remember? She had a friend, she had a vision. And as it turns out, Kylie is not a big in manufacturing. She doesn't have a bunch of buildings, but one of her other friends' father actually owns a manufacturing organization. And if you know anything about cosmetics, there's about 5 companies on the planet that make all the cosmetics. No matter what brand is on it, it likely was made in a very similar factory as everything that sits on your counter. One of 5. Turns out her friend's father owned it. Lastly, Kylie did have something. We talked about the types of reach earlier. When we talk about Kylie's reach, and I think at the time that this launched, she had 240 million people on her Instagram following list. That's a lot of people. So she absolutely had access to someone's eyeballs. Turns out she had access to someone's minds. And when they launched this brand, I would argue she had access to someone's hearts, 240 million people's hearts. Because when they launched this, if anyone did recall, it broke the internet. This is a very simple, complete, and pretty impactful example. $1 billion was the outcome here of vision that her friend had, combined with capabilities that a friend's father had. And then lastly, what she showed up to the party with, reach. But the outcome, $1 billion. So knowing everyone on this call has the ability to do the exact same thing. You don't have to show up with anything other than what you already have. You have vision, you have ideas, you have capabilities. When you show up to offer those capabilities to someone else's ideas, you create value. And then if you find someone who has reach, maybe Kylie with way more than 240 million now, you can go from zero to hero. Life is all about creating value. We've been given all of these components, and this type of formula, vision plus capability multiplied times reach, is a very simple way to look at the world, first to understand it and then to activate it. So let's move on to the next one. This is a very interesting one. And of course, we could look at Kylie, and those are, I would argue, a celebrity. This gentleman has become a celebrity. But you'll notice that if you really unpacked who had the vision here, who had the idea? This gentleman, Robert Earl, in the U.S. is Planet Hollywood. I think they may be international as well. But he was known for that. And then during COVID, he figured out, he's like, hold up. You've got a lot of kitchens. And during COVID, there wasn't a lot of dining out. But all those kitchens sat dormant. Well, there's a lot of capabilities. And then he created the ability, and you see here this ghost kitchen. So you could have anyone's recipe made in someone's restaurant, even though the restaurant wasn't open. You were leveraging the capabilities that existed there, and that created value. And he didn't have to go and create all these kitchens. Now, as you can see, Planet Hollywood, he was the founder. Well, the way Planet Hollywood existed is they built a lot of Planet Hollywoods. But over time, he began to uncover some of the things I'm sharing with you today. He began to see the world as it existed, not as it conventionally was known. He said, hold up, these kitchens are an asset. They're a capability. If we apply other people's vision, we can create a lot of outcome. And then he took it one step further. So knowing and building off the awareness that there's a lot of kitchens out there that have a lot of ingredients already, he ran across and was introduced to this gentleman named Mr. Beast. Now, I assume most of us know Mr. Beast. I think he's the top creator on YouTube, the highest paid creator on YouTube. And what they were successfully able to do is this Robert Earl went to Mr. Beast and said, hey, if you were going to create a restaurant, I'm in the restaurant business. If you were to create a restaurant, what would you serve? He said, burgers. Is that all? Yes, that's all. That's all I love, burgers. And my restaurants would serve burgers just the way I like them. So because he has such an audience, Mr. Robert, of course, thinking the way that I'm sharing with you guys today, immediately identified with, if we created a burger and we leveraged Mr. Beast's reach, very similar to Kylie, we could open a lot of restaurants and do a lot of business. But if we combine it as well with, again, what he knows and where he knows and who he knows, he had already amassed all these ghost kitchens. Well, as I unpack this one, the Mr. Beast burgers requires 26 ingredients. Every kitchen that this Mr. Robert Earl had in his collaboration had 19 of the 23 ingredients that it needed. So they already had them on hand. They had to order 4 more ingredients. And with that, as you can see at the bottom, they launched 342 restaurants in one day. The reason that that is different than the convention is we'll flip to the next slide. There's a couple others who have gotten to 300 restaurants. You'll see in the bottom left one that we're probably all familiar with. 300 restaurants in 33 years. This In-N-Out Burger on the right, which is very big in the US, 300 restaurants took them 24 years. This formula that I've shared with you today and the way that you are empowered to create value, not that you want to go create restaurants, but who knows, you may have aspirations to do so. It's the way in which you, as just like me, on the farm at 8 years old, who felt like I had nothing, and then it broke for me all in a second. All the resources in the world are mine to combine, to be creative, not because I felt creative, but I'd figured out exactly the formula. If I leverage what I know, who I know, or where I know, and combine it with what already exists, every time I do it, it creates something. In this example, it created 342 restaurants. So this is the empowerment that we all have. Yes, today you're in a position. Yes, today you're on a team. And yes, today you have a title. I'm telling you today, there's a lot more to you than meets the eye. You have your own level of vision. You have an immense amount of capabilities. And you also, every one of us, have trusted relationships. When we show up to give them, magic happens through the art of combining them. So, of course, we saw the poll earlier, the percentage of us who felt like we're creative and the percentage that don't know that they're already creative. I hope today we figured out that we're all creative and you came with everything that you already need. All we were doing, even today, and I wish we'd do as a kid and certainly in school, was tell us how to activate it. So let's proceed to the next slide. So the secret to life, as I said, is to give what you have been given. We come into life with nothing. As it turns out, we're going to leave with nothing either. I don't know anybody who's taken a big suitcase of money or chocolate out of this world. Your life itself is already a collaboration. Only through combining what somebody else has with you has created exactly where you are and how you exist today. But when you show up to give, others multiply it. This 100x return comes not in a straight line, as I mentioned earlier, but when you show up with the most authentic expression of you and the most honest intention to just create value for others, the entire world opens up for you. So let's flip to the next slide. So I have a challenge for you. As we reflect on what we've learned this morning and we look into the future, what's one thing that a gift that you know, based upon our conversation this morning, you're starting to really see these things, I hope. What's one gift that you'll commit to giving in the next week? Perhaps it's your time, or you know things that others don't know, and I can guarantee you do. Or perchance it's your encouragement. You can just see someone who's struggling, and you can see their gifts as well. I left that out. Whenever you begin to figure out exactly and lead with your vision, understand what your capabilities are, and lastly, inventory your reach, it's empowering because you begin to see it for others. And as I said, the only thing we can do is give what we've been given. So would you commit to giving your encouragement? Or perchance some of those trusted relationships? There's others that walk in and out of your life. They're all trying to accomplish and to create something. They share that with you. Maybe you'll show up and introduce them to trusted relationships that you already have. So thank you for kicking up the poll here. Let's take a look at what we all commit to giving. If you will, take a second and just respond to the poll. I mentioned earlier, go to the very last one there. Take a look. This reach, and one reason I really wanted to unpack the types of reach, in my experience working with entrepreneurs and also a lot of other individuals on the planet, the reach component is something that we don't really, it doesn't come easy for us to recognize that as an inventoried asset, a true asset that you have. But I'm hoping some of the awareness and the knowledge that we shared today, we began to really look at those reach assets that we all have to understand the types of relationships that we have, not only to be aware of what we have, but also to empower us to be more intentional about the types of reach that we create on a daily basis. One way to drive trust in those that you meet is to show up to create value. So leading with giving what you have been given will drive a lot more of these reach relationships. And I'm very interested in the correlation between my time, so helping others, and my encouragement, being aware of what they're trying to accomplish and how what you know or who you know or where you know can get them to their goals. So thank you all for responding to the poll here. That's some very interesting information. And if we'd like, let's proceed to the next slide. Wonderful. So I really, really genuinely appreciate the time to share this with you guys today. I feel like absolutely that it is my purpose and also my mission. I'll share the specificity of my mission. It is to evolve collaboration from a concept that people just talk about into a culture. Think today we have just over 8 billion or 8.1 billion people on this planet. If tomorrow morning everyone woke up with the idea and the drive to give what they've been given to others, where would we be now? Again, I said everything that you see, everything that you've ever seen, and everything that you'll see into the future, it started as an idea in someone's imagination, just like yours. The difference is the ones that take action, that show up to give what they've been given and to combine what they have been given with others to create new and unique value. So I really appreciate your time today. I would expect this is not super conventional. And one little parting gift. If we do agree with me that everything starts as an idea in someone's imagination, just like yours, then we're all not thinking big enough. We are all high performers, but I will tell you, in the name and title of this book, I challenge you to just add a zero to whatever you're doing today. Add a zero and then let your brain tell you why you can't do that. And know that if you just show up to give what you've been given to others, you'll begin to identify the people and the things that can help you add that zero. So as a parting gift, I'd like to offer you guys this is a best-selling book that I wrote a couple years ago, and it's just at a zero. So it adds quite a few concepts that I've just run across in this entrepreneur journey that I've been on. And I wanted to write them down and help others. So awesome little book, and I hope that it continues to just inspire you to do more with what you already have. So thanks again, guys.
We're going to actually ask everybody if they have any questions to email us at lifebydesign@itbd.net, and we will forward those to you. But thank you so much, Chad, for that wonderful, powerful, moving session. You reminded us that secret to life is a mindset. Define success your way. Use what you've been given and let small actions create lasting impact. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you. Thank you so much for showing up, staying open, and choosing to grow. And until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember to keep living life by design and not by default. We'll see you next Friday. Thank you so much, Chad, from all of us. And let's please, all of us, give some love to Chad for an amazing session today. All of us together with a lot of hearts.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure being with you. Go be you, okay? Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much, Chad.